A Califórnia começou seu ano fiscal com um bolso cheio. O estado mais rico dos Estados Unidos registrou superávit de quase 100 bilhões de dólares, uma marca histórica. Com grana sobrando, literalmente, como explicar a crise de habitação que assola a área? Mais de 65 mil pessoas estão em situação de rua só na cidade de Los Angeles, e a projeção é que este abismo se alargue.
Something like 20,000, about 20,000 people are moved from the street into housing every year, but 25,000 go to the street. We have never had such extreme income inequity as we have now. So we cannot imagine building housing, market rate housing, and having it serve people at the far end of that inequity, the people who are very poor.
O avanço da inflação e o alastramento da crise econômica no país e no mundo colocam mais pressão sobre a questão habitacional em cidades onde a desigualdade é latente.
Just to give you a statistical example, in Los Angeles County before the pandemic and before the economic collapse, in Los Angeles County, there were 600,000 people in households that were paying more than 90% of their income for rent. So, and those households typically had zero or negative assets, meaning that if they had any sort of a setback, a temporary setback, an illness, being laid off at a job, or some other problem, they would be forced into homelessness quickly.
A Califórnia tenta combater essa crise com projetos habitacionais. O estado aposta na construção de moradias provisórias e na conversão de hotéis em abrigos temporários. Além de não ser uma resposta final para essa questão, essas alternativas ainda revelam outros problemas.
The problem is that the shelters and services that are often offered are actually quite carceral in the way that they treat people. Project Roomkey, for example, which is the hotels program, has a 7 p.m. curfew that if you miss, you're kicked out for the night. So it's a traumatizing experience as well, too. So I think a more gentle hand by the city is very needed.
The only way to address homelessness is to offer people a place indoors that's better than what they have outdoors. And that can really only be achieved either by just offering people free housing or hopefully helping people increase their incomes so that they can pay rent and increasing the supply of housing so that the price will go down. And there are efforts in both those directions, but they're remarkably inadequate so far.
Com verba para a construção ou financiamento de moradia, a Califórnia experimenta outro problema, que não tem preço: o preconceito.
Almost every neighborhood now does not want affordable housing, and there's no real basis for that. People think it brings their property values down, but there's no research that shows that. So those neighborhoods that have been marginalized and underserved are now fighting against getting even more of what no other neighborhood wants, right? So they don't want a homeless shelter. They don't want permanent supportive housing. They don't want homeless shelters of anything. They don't want anything either. So really, the people who are living on the street and the people who are supporting building housing for them are stuck between a rock and a hard spot, because there's very few sites now that don't cause political strain, contestation.
Para além da polêmica, Dana ressalta que a convivência entre pessoas de classes sociais diferentes em um mesmo bairro é benéfica para toda a sociedade.
That we need to be with people unlike ourselves in order to be civilized, truly. I mean, civil society depends upon our coming up against people who think differently than we do, look differently than we do, have different needs, raise their children differently. And unless you have that, you lose your fundamental humanity.